We are programmed to think that we need an everlasting relationship and marriage and children. And this is what we see in movies, in advertising, in books, Disney, you name it. We are programmed to think that the norm is to find your forever person, get married, have children, and that is some form of success. This has probably been the first time in my life that I've sat down and I've said to myself, why did I want that? Why do I feel like I need another half to make me whole? I'm definitely whole. I always have been. And actually, if I look back, it's usually been being let down by other people that has made me feel like less, that has made me feel less whole. When I rely on myself and I trust myself, I don't let myself down. So actually, in trying to become whole, I think I've become less at times and I've had to rebuild myself back up. Then I've thought about why I felt I wanted to get married. And I don't think there's a wrong or right answer. I think either's fine. But I think we're programmed to think that there is a right answer and that people who don't want that are a bit weird or a bit different or being difficult or whatever. I do still think for me that I would like to get married. Thinking about it as I have, I think a lot of that does come from what I always knew, which is I didn't come from that upbringing. My parents weren't together, they were never married. And I do know the difficulties of that. But for the first time in my life, I really have accepted not getting married as an option, and I guess allowed myself to not see it as a failure. Because for instance, where I was engaged and I did think I'd found that and I did think that was going to be the life for me, I didn't walk away from it. I would have fought to the end for that. So it's not a failure that might not happen for me. That's not my failing. And it's quite nice to remove that coat and go, okay, it didn't work out, but I was ready for that. I was committed. I was open. I was up for that, and I was here, fully in. I may find somebody who really will love me in the way that I deserve, and we will embark on that together, and we will have the most amazing life together, and I hope that's the case. However, if it's not the case, I am whole, and I won't let myself down, and I have brilliant friends and family, and there's a whole life out there waiting to be had, whether I do that alone or whether I share that with somebody else. And I think our reasons for wanting things are absolutely fine, but we have to strive for the best version of that. If you're getting to a stage where you're just getting married because you decided you'd get married, that's not good enough, and you deserve better. And what I'm realizing is I would sooner be alone and living my absolute best life for me and learning to love myself completely and fiercely and wholeheartedly, and going to the countries that I want to visit and using my money to benefit me and make the choices that suit me. And I think I would like children, and I will do that, whatever way that works, and I'll be the best parent I can possibly be. For the first time in my life, I'm really accepting that none of these things depend on anybody else. Having a happy and fulfilled life doesn't need to be about somebody else. It always has to be about you. And even if you are married, even if you do have that perfect family, if you aren't doing the work and you aren't loving yourself, it's never going to be that great anyway. You're never going to reach the highest heights that you so deserve if you're not doing the work, and if you're not both doing the work. I have had to look at why I stayed in a relationship where I deserved better for so long. And I've had to look at why I was susceptible to falling in love with somebody who was a narcissist. It's really difficult waking up as yourself again and looking at how much of yourself you lost. And it's terrifying when you didn't see it happening. It's quite a rude awakening to kind of go, God, I completely lost myself, and I gave myself over so wholeheartedly to somebody who basically erased who I was. The thing I've become fascinated with is how did I let that happen, and why did I let that happen, and who am I now? So I know I'm stronger and better than ever, and that is because I have done the work. I haven't shied away from any of it. I've faced it. So I didn't just wake up that way. I've put the effort in, and it's not been easy, but it's been really, really worth it. But I've had to look at not falling into those traps again. And I think number one thing for all of us is not facing up to childhood trauma, things that have happened in the past. It's so easy to bury these things, to push them down, to full stop them, like I've spoken about in my therapy video. it's easier to live that way. The harder thing is to face it. You know, I don't think you should live in the past, but I do think you should face it. And it's really bizarre how things that we think we're healed from actually have left really deep scars. When we acknowledge these things and we stare at it straight in the face, 9 times out of 10, when we've buried what's happened down, all we've sort of done is tell ourselves it was our fault, or we weren't good enough, or we don't deserve that love, and that leaves us really open to accepting love that's less than we deserve. And if we can heal those traumas and those wounds, and we all have them, and really start to love ourselves fiercely. And there's so many different ways of doing this. For me, obviously, I had therapy. I've tried affirmations. I'm not very good at keeping up with them, but I do them every so often. I do feel I'm getting less of the negative voice now. Another thing is to name your anxiety or your angry thoughts. Another thing is to really let go of ego. So often we're completely ruled by that, and it really blocks us. There's so many different ways to learn to love yourself, and different things will help you. But it's so important to get on that journey today, because I honestly think if you truly love yourself and know what you deserve and don't accept less, it's impossible to be targeted by people who will emotionally abuse you or discard you. I've been looking a lot into attachment theory. The main types are anxious, avoidant, and secure. The dream is to be secure. Looking at my situation, I think I used to be secure, and I've now become more anxious because of what I've been through. And so I've really been working on getting back to that secure place. And for me, that's been not overthinking, not playing games. So if you're anxious attached, that's when you're like overthink and you really want them there, and you crave intimacy and all of these things. And then if you start to feel them push away, because a lot of the time anxious attached are attracted to avoidant, because there's that whole thing comes into play of wanting to fix them and heal them and all of that. And avoidant attached like anxious attached, because then we play into their game playing and it becomes this sort of toxic but perfect mess. So for me, it's been really about like not playing those games anymore. In the past, if it was like, oh, well, he hasn't texted me back, I'll leave it a couple of days. Now I'm like, if I want to see someone, I'll say it. There's no shame in that. There's no rejection. How would you be with a friend? You know, if you say to your friend, oh, do you want to hang out Monday? And they go, yeah, maybe Tuesday, I'll get back to you. And then you don't hear, what would you do? You'd probably be like, hey, babe, on for next week, right? When you're dating, you're like, well, no, I couldn't say because I haven't heard from them. It becomes this whole game. And then so often we get ourselves into toxic mixes of people because we've not been being true to ourselves. So what I'm realizing is the sooner you are just yourself, and if you like that person and you want to get to know them, because that's all it is, right? Put yourself out there, make the offer. If they don't come back and it doesn't work, there could be 1,000 reasons. None of it means anything because you don't know each other well enough. So the more I'm doing that, now it becomes less about me going, oh, do they like me? Oh, well, I haven't heard. Oh, well, I've heard. And playing all into their palms and letting them control it and letting them operate it before I even know if I like them enough. Because that's another thing I'll do. I'll often be really keen in the beginning and just thinking about it all the time and obsessed. But that's not to do with them. That's to do with my ego. That's to do with my insecurity. That's to do with past rejection. That's to do with my idea that to be successful and happy, I have to be married and in love. And it's all of these things coming into play. I don't even know them well enough to have an opinion. So now I found where I'm just myself and I'm like, oh, cool, I'd really like to see you. It either happens, lo and behold, and then you can get to know each other slowly and it will either progress or it'll fizzle out. Or they don't get back to you as soon as you'd like, or they aren't prioritizing you in the way that you'd like. And then you go, oh, maybe they're not for me. Maybe we're not in the same place. And it's that simple. And it saves you so much time and stress and energy. And I think I spent so long when I was younger trying to decode signals and signs and what people meant, and then trying to prove to myself in some way if they really liked me in a club, you know, on a night out, and it was all really like intense and amazing, and then, you know, they went off a bit and hadn't texted back, I'd be like desperate to just get that original thing back where they really liked me. Well, we were pissed and like in the moment, like, of course, and maybe they're not looking for a relationship. Like, there's so many reasons, but we get into these games and we're trying to be versions of ourselves to each other. And I think, so how often do we just sort of sit back, focus on ourselves, focus on what we need, and it's either going to work or it's not? Like, it's so simple when you strip all of that stuff away. If it's meant to be, it'll work and it'll be easy. And if it feels like hard work, it ain't for me. And it's not a rejection from either side. It's nothing. It's just for whatever reason at this moment, it's just not, it's not gelling. And then similarly to that, when we are further into a relationship and it starts to go wrong or they're not who we thought, we were absolutely fine before. And look at me, I'm living proof that you will be really fine afterwards. Probably better than you were before because you've learned a bit more and you've learned more about what you want. So why do we hang on and stay in things that are just stressing us out? Like, why? Genuinely, why? And I've just got this sort of stillness now and this comfort in like, I'm okay. And I don't need it, I want it. And I'm also not ashamed of that. So if I do meet someone who's not in that place and they're still farting about, I'm not interested. I want to commit to getting to know somebody. I don't know if I want to commit to them because I don't know them, but I do want to commit to getting to know somebody. And I am open to spending the rest of my life adventuring with someone and learning them over and over again and being there to support them and being there to help them fly. And I have no interest in doing what I've done in my past relationships where I'm picking people up and fixing them and putting the band-aids on and forgetting my pain and focusing on theirs. And I'm not interested in that, but I am interested to lift and support somebody that's doing the work for themselves, and I hope they'll do the same thing for me while I'm doing the work for me. And that's what I'm after, and that's what all of us should be after. And I heard earlier, like, the only way we heal the world is by starting with ourselves, and it's true. If absolutely everybody was doing the work on themselves and looking inwardly rather than acting up or trying to be a version that they think they should be, or people pleasing, or lashing out, or running away from somebody because they're too scared to get close, all of these ways that we hit the self-destruct button, if we did less of that and more introspection and more taking time out when we needed it, reading books, getting therapy, whatever it is that helps you, spending time with our friends and being lifted and feeling like the best versions of ourselves, if we all spent more time doing that, we'd be in a much better, safer, happier world and environment and place. And that's what I'm looking for now in friendships, in colleagues, in relationships. The best way I can be the best partner or friend or whatever is to keep on doing the work for me and focusing on me. And if we put half of the time that we wasted second guessing somebody else into just being secure and open and honest about what we want, everything would get a lot easier because it's mad quick. This is where I'm at. Are you at that place? No, cool. Have a nice life. Pass my cross again. Or you're like, cool, let's have a little journey. See where we end up. You might go 2 stops on the train. You might travel the whole world, come back around again. Who knows? There shouldn't be any fear or shame, and all of that stuff is ego and past rejection and past trauma rearing its ugly head and making us feel like we're not good enough. Because if you get really comfortable and settled with yourself and you know that you are good enough, it doesn't feel like a rejection. They can't meet you yet. And that's all it is. Sometimes people are here and, it's a balancing act. And it would be silly to think that every single person we find attractive or, connect with a little bit is going to be on the same page as us. It's timing is a bitch, but when she works, she works. And also I think if you do let go rather than trying to force it and trust the timing of your life and go, okay, well, I hoped that one might work out, but actually this is more time to invest in me. There's 7 billion other people on the planet. You never know if that person's meant, while you're getting busier, getting even better, they might be doing the same, and then you're going to align and be in an even better place than you would have been before. So I think there's never any fear in giving it time. And I think every time something doesn't work out, it's another chance to turn it around, and it's another chance to learn from it and to grow and to do more work on yourself. And I just see that as a blessing now. And when I think about how much time I spent putting it into my relationship and putting work into trying to help and lift and elevate my partner, it comes down to a savior complex, and I definitely have one. And I realized in doing that I was blocking myself. So I got so busy putting all of that into my relationships, to focusing on them and lifting them and educating them. And sometimes that also stifles growth because you're not letting them do the work that they need to do for themselves, because you learn by making the mistakes and stuff, right? It's so hard to watch the people we love just going into that fire. But I feel now like, if you want to set yourself on fire, sometimes setting yourself on fire is the best thing you can do. Just like jumping into it, going for it. Now I'm like, I'll hand you the match if that's what you need to do, and I'll be there with the fire blanket on the other side, rather than like trying to put your flames out or running there ahead of time. Or I just don't know how helpful that is. I'd given over all my money, all my friends. I was thinking of moving away. I was thinking of giving up my career. Like everything had just been, I'd given it all, because it got to a stage where his happiness was just everything to me. And because we are programmed by society to think we should want the marriage, I was like, well, I found my person. So if he needs me, he is more important. So I will put him first. And I will, I know that moving forward, the way I protect myself from that is in doing the work and having self-love and loving myself so fiercely that nobody can penetrate that. And it's not to say I will never put someone first again. I will, but I think I'll always love myself just as much. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to love ourselves and our partner on an equal level, rather than think that we come second, because it doesn't operate like that. But what I've also learned from attachment theory is that the most secure relationships, if you are two secure people, that support and that comfort actually allows you to be the very best versions of yourself, because you know you have that safety net. So you tend to go further and get braver. And yeah, so ironically, in finding somebody that's like amazing and puts you first and stuff actually makes you like a stronger, braver version of yourself. So that's what I'm looking for. Mr. Secure. And I'm excited to be Miss Secure for him. So bring it on. Power couple. I think one of the nicest things I've learned is that nothing's that bad. When my relationship first broke down, obviously it was so difficult because I didn't understand it. Made no sense. And that's what happens if you get discarded. And then obviously he left his email logged into my computer. So I saw all the receipts and the cheating and the moving on straight away. And I understand now, through what I've learned, that there's nothing I could have done. It's not about me, although I was gaslit into thinking it was all my fault. I also know I'd been open about mental health stuff, and I know from some of the emails that got used. Times when he didn't go to things he should have been at, he'd say I'd had an anxiety attack and stuff. It was bullshit. So I know that's probably been the story to others, that it was all of that. And to be honest, I did start to believe that I was a burden. I remember one night he was really screaming at me, and I fell because I was trying to get away. And these girls saw, loads of people rushed over, and bouncers and everything. And I remember really clearly him going, she's got mental health problems. And it broke me. I was like, I've been depressed before. Don't use that. This isn't what this is about. This is you right now. And anyway, these girls luckily just heard me and believed me and walked me to my mum's house. And I remember just saying again and again, I hate that you used that, and I hate that you used it in that way. And me being vulnerable with you and open with you about having struggled with depression and anxiety has now been used against me. It's been weaponized. But over time, I did start to believe I was the problem. And I was like, God, I'm a burden. I'm useless. And then obviously the antidepressants and all these things. And then I did believe that. I even believed that. And I let him make me believe that. And then the minute I'm out of it, I'm not on antidepressants anymore. I've not had a panic attack anymore. I can control it really easily. I think I said in my last video, I used to get really ill. I don't anymore. I used to be sick a lot and stuff. I'm not anymore. I'm in such better health. And actually waking up and realizing that, like, obviously it's so sad when you realize like your relationship was that toxic. And I've since read in the attachment book. So it's not even something that they're probably aware they're doing. I doubt they are, but you genuinely, with attachment, you do affect each other. Like, it's scientifically proven. You have an effect on each other's heart rates, the whole lot. So it's not that they're actively trying to make you ill necessarily. I mean, they do with gaslighting, and I don't know how aware narcissists and emotional abusers are of what they're doing. Some of them might not be aware at all. Some of them are probably totally aware. I have no idea. I can't answer that. I don't need to. Regardless of where they are, even if they don't realize they're doing it, they do scientifically have an effect on your body, on your anxiety levels, on the way you react and everything. I was, as an empath, feeling all of these things, like obviously knowing something was off in the relationship, not knowing what it was, just presuming it was me because of my insecurities, and there's so many things laced up. It's just a perfect mix of toxic. But I cannot tell you, when you come out of that and you realize it wasn't you, and actually you're absolutely fine on your own, and you're healthy and you're well and you're thriving, there's so much joy. And now I've just come out the other side and I'm like, don't get me wrong, I still feel heartbreak. I still miss the person I thought he was. I'm still grieving a whole life that I thought I was going to have, that has been taken away from me. There's so much that is sad and upsetting, but at the crux of it, I'm so happy to be free, and I'm so happy to be me again. And a whole world has opened up, and I've changed again, and I've evolved, and I'm a better person than I was. I know I could be a better partner now. I know what I want more. I've really had conversations with myself about that. And I guess that's the message that I want to share more than anything. Like, there's so much joy to be had on the other side. And we work so hard to keep relationships going that just aren't really serving us. And I really urge you to ask yourself more questions. Why are you in this relationship? What is so scary about being on the other side of it? What is so scary about being alone? If it's facing things, demons, traumas, things that you've pushed down, I don't think you're ever going to have a truly happy life until you face these things head on. Narcissists, for instance, are a prime example of that. They've had some sort of trauma that's happened to them. They've buried it all down. They've put a mask up, and they operate from a place of the lowest vibration, which is just shame. And what a horrible place to live and to be in. And that's one end of the spectrum, but I think we do that. There's variables, and so many people operate from like a lower place than they need to, because they're so scared of going back and doing the work and exploring stuff. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, it's difficult, it can feel worse before it feels better, but the other side is lovely. And you meet so many great people up here because you're doing the work and you're together, and there's so much support and love. And I honestly cannot tell you, if I've learnt one thing, it's that nothing's that bad. You always get through it. You always live to see another day. And the more you do the work and the more you love yourself, the more you have time to appreciate the small things and small pleasures in every day, and you realize how much you can be your own best friend. And sure, there's a quiet, sad loneliness, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not too proud, because I'm letting my ego go. I'm not too proud to say that I'd love to be in a healthy, happy relationship. I'd love to have a partner to explore the world with, and kiss and cuddle and lift up, and have him look at me and know he's proud of me, and vice versa. Like, I'd love that more than anything, but I'm absolutely fine while it's not here. And more than that, I'm happier to be alone than to be in something that was pretending to be that, or that I was desperately trying to make that, because I didn't love myself enough and I thought I couldn't do that for myself. And I can, so can you. It actually just makes me a bit emotional when I think how low I got and how hard I fought for something that actually was breaking me. Whereas now I'll have the odd sad or lonely day, or I catch myself and I go, wow, how could he do that? But then I think, well, thank God he did, because now the world's wide open again and I have a whole life ahead of me, and I didn't waste even more of my time. It's such a lovely place to operate from when you're like, actually, nah, don't need it, like, unless it feels really good and unless I'm seeing effort, and because you know what you'd be prepared to put in, so you expect the same back. At first I thought, God, am I damaged now? My trust is going to be shattered. How am I going to believe in anyone again? But actually it's been the opposite. As long as you sit in that and you have been hurt. I saw the ways I've become more anxious attached, but the more I've kind of allowed myself that, and I'm like, yeah. And I've also realized I don't think this was my first narcissist. And so I got really used to love bombing as the norm. So then when a guy is just quite normal and just checks in like a normal level, I was like, why am I not hearing from him every day? Why is he not showering me with love and affection? And then I was like, that's not normal. So now I'm starting to recognize the signs and actually just slowly getting to know someone. is really nice. And I think lockdown has put the brakes on things, and I think that's something we should take with us outside of lockdown. I think don't rush things. Do get to know people as you would friends. You know, just get to know them as a person and see if you're compatible before you load it with all this other stuff. You know, the anticipation of the first kiss and, you know, upping it a gear and stuff. I think that's really, really exciting, and we should utilize that and make the most of that, and know that we're precious and we don't need to give ourselves away that quickly. And also that finding out you're maybe not compatible with someone you fancy doesn't have to feel like a rejection, because it's a two-way street and you should both be learning about each other. And I don't know why this is why I keep going back to, I've not worked out yet, but is it this societal pressure that is like, he has to like me or she has to like me, or we feel like we failed? Like, I think it's really weird, because we don't do that with friends. You know, you get to know someone, you get to know them a bit more, and then over time, you know, it's like when you meet a friend from work and you have your first like outside expedition from work, and then, you know, you're like, oh, we've crossed over that line. You know, it's a natural progression. And sometimes it happens really quickly and it fizzles out, and sometimes it happens really slowly and you're like, oh, I wasn't sure about you at first and I really dig you now. And it should be the same in relationships. And I think that's what I'm taking from it. Slow and steady wins the race. And that's the first time I've ever said that. Normally I'm like, now. I think you get so invested and you've put so much into it, then I think that's why sometimes we fight so hard for things that aren't really worth it, because we went too hard and heavy at the beginning. So feel like we've got all this stuff riding on it now, when really we don't. We don't. And we just need to chill out. And if we all focused on ourselves more, we wouldn't have as much time anyway to be like pouring it into somebody else all the time and getting obsessed. Oh my God, I'm speaking to myself here as much as I am you. These lessons are definitely for a past version of me. I guess the message is, don't stay where you don't belong. Don't stay where you don't feel cherished and wanted. It is much better on the other side. I'm living proof. And once you've been through the pain and the heartache, you know, every time you cry and eat a tub of ice cream and feel sad, that's a little bit more healing and it gets easier. And there's so much growth that comes from it. And you definitely come out the other side as a better person. Definitely love yourself. That is work you need to do, whether you're in a relationship or out of one. It's life work, it's daily work. You have to keep showing up to loving yourself. I genuinely believe that's the only way you'll have a safe and healthy and happy relationship. I also think it's how you protect yourself if you are in a relationship. The breakdown of my relationship was very complex in reality, and it started to falter when I started to love myself again. That's what happened. It was going okay when I hated myself, and the more I got my confidence up and was meeting new people and having a laugh and starting to think, oh, maybe I'm not shit, maybe I am talented, maybe I can do this, maybe people do like me, maybe I'm not a waste of space. That's when the cracks started to show and when I started to get discarded. So I see that now. Me finding some self-love again is why that relationship started to break down. 100%. It's why it ended. So doing that work will always serve you, always. So never be afraid to do it, whether you're in a relationship or out of one. Probably even more important to do it if you're in one. No, always important, just equally important all the time. There's always light at the other end of the tunnel, and sometimes rejection is protection. So just don't see things as rejection. Like, don't give all your power away. I don't know, like all this, oh, does he like me? Does she like me? Like, nah, never mind about that. Do you like them? That's the important bit. And if they aren't meeting you where you need to be, then they ain't for you. There's no shame in that. They can still be a nice person. You could be a nice person. Your paths will cross later or they won't. Could be someone better out there. Dangling some rose quartz here. Self-love. Get yourself some of that. I just threw my rose quartz. Oh, shit. Sorry. It's all right. She's all right. She's all right. Didn't play with my hair a lot in this one, did I? So there's a zhuzh for you. I really think my lipstick and t-shirt match is pretty good here. I'm feeling myself. Anyway, see you later. Have a good week. Bye-bye.